Hey everyone, it's time for another episode of Genius Leadership Podcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And today I'm super excited about the topic because I don't know enough about it myself. What is the expertise of our guest, but also the journey that she has come through to get to the point where she's helping other businesses. It's just super fascinating. Keich, thank you so much for finding time. And good morning to you. It's still morning for you.
Yes,
And
good
warmest
morning.
welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning.
So, Katie, we'll go into what you do now and how you got the whole journey, but I usually start with the general framework, right? This podcast is about genius leadership, and I'm always curious about what is what is leadership and who is a leader for you as my guest.
Yeah, absolutely. I am very big on the leader is the person that's showing people how to take charge and not being afraid to take accountability where accountability needs to be taken. They don't point blame. They're always working and doing, the best for their team and ensuring that they are, leading by example.
Yeah. Can you elaborate more about the accountability? I really love that word, but I would like to know what do you mean when you talk about that on both parts, right? The people who are led and who are following, and also those who are leading.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for me, it's when people, are there's something that goes wrong, right? There's something that goes wrong in the day to day, and you find yourself looking at everybody else to go, oh, what happened? How did this happen? Those kind of things. I'm a big believer in, listen, it doesn't matter why it happened. We want to correct it to ensure something doesn't happen in the future, but onus is on me. I'm the leader. So if it's somebody on my team or my team's team, fully down the track here, the onus has to be at this point as the leader, because it also starts and stops with me. And so I'm going to say, let's work to figure out what went wrong. Let's learn from it, but then let's understand these things happen and we got to learn from them.
I love it, Katie, because what you're saying is really about the ownership, right? And it's really, instead of pointing fingers at each other, saying like, hey, we're in this together, we're all learning, right? And like, I, as a leader, not always have the correct answers, and sometimes I'm also screwing up and so on. So giving permission to your team to do the same, and then like having their hand and giving them your support to really figure out, okay, what is our learning? How do we improve? How do we avoid this next time? This is brilliant, and it's so important for us leaders to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that not all leaders do. So many times it's let's see if I can put onus on somebody else, or, oh, I can't, I don't want to look like I make mistakes. The best leaders make mistakes. The ones that are willing to make mistakes generally go further, and they're willing to try things other people aren't willing to do. They're willing to make the pivot faster. And, these are the things that I think are define true leadership.
It's so good that you're saying about that, Katie, because to me, this is about overcoming everything, and this is about the genius leadership, because people from outside will only look at our successes if we're successful, and it somehow happens very naturally that everything else blurs out. Even if we try to point out, hey guys, I worked with this for 15 years and I sacrificed this and that, people just somehow don't, it doesn't land. So it's so important to really keep pointing it out, that we educate each other and remind each other like, hey, failing and trying is part of this process, and it's the important part of the process. Just as you said, that is something that gets you further on your journey, on your success journey. It maybe gets you there faster as well, and in a healthier way. If we're just sitting there and trying to avoid the failures, then we're hurting ourselves, because we're really restricting ourselves, and that restriction is usually suffocating.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to be able to look in the mirror and know that you tried your best. As I always say, that if you are looking in the mirror and you have self-doubt, that's where you're going to, give that, you're going to have that come off of you, and that's going to go to your team. So you have to look in the mirror and have that confidence and know you did your best, you tried. Things are going to work, some things are not going to work, and it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. So I would like to get the conversation divided a bit into two parts. One is your experience in the corporate, because you have a brilliant journey there that I think a lot of people will learn a lot, and then go into the full advantage LLC. So what you're doing now and how you're helping businesses. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, it works for me.
Yeah, great. So we could start with the first part of it, the corporate. And you started in the corporate when you were 19. How come?
Yeah, so it's funny. I loved basketball. Always thought I was going to end up being a basketball player, and going to college somewhere and just focusing on that. And I ended up getting hurt in my junior year, and it kind of ended those dreams. And so I found myself at that point in my life kind of going, okay, what's next for me? Ended up enrolling in a local community college and graduating high school and saying, well, I might as well get a job. So I started with that company when I was 19 years old, and it was just a small franchise. It was under, a million in revenue. And we looked at each other. I think I was one of two employees to start. And it was kind of like, okay, how do we grow this? And then we just figured it out. I mean, it was definitely a team effort. I never, ever take full accountability. We had great leadership. And we were able to, consolidate during the recession, to continue scaling and growing. We, organically we're making purchases and acquisitions of other franchises, helping fold them in and lead by example. And we went from being under $1 million to 200 million in like 8 short years. And then corporate kind of came back in and said, hey, you guys are a super franchise. We want to purchase you as the largest franchise in the system, fold you back into corporate, and start the acquisition model, buying up the franchises and folding it into the corporate stores. And we did that, to the tune of 650 million, and then looked at, hey, it was time to purchase our largest competitor at the time. So we folded them in to get into the 800 million, and then continued growing on both, kept both brands separate, continued growing, and ended up, being 1.5 billion over 14 years of time. And so, and most recently, I'm still in touch with the organization, and still, for a business, just did an acquisition, or merger, I should say, of two huge global brands, and now they're a $4 billion company. So as of we'll close here in the next 45 days.
Just those numbers.
I know, it's a lot.
Going from 1 million to 4 billion in revenue.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And I think that will start, like, people will just be like, okay, let's listen.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think we have attention of our audience right now. Now I want to go through 2 parts. While you were growing in revenues, I want to go into 2 more parallel tracks: growth of the team,
yep,
and growth of the leadership and you as a leader. Which one of those would you like to start with?
Let's start with growth as me as a leader, because there definitely were times that, a lot of trials and tribulations with that kind of growth, right? So not necessarily knowing what the path was and creating the path was a big part of that. And it was trial by fire. We weren't afraid to try things that our competitors weren't doing. We weren't afraid to do things that others weren't doing. So I think that being able to, and that's something that I still hold with me even today. Like I look at things so differently than most people do, and look at how can I bring technology into this? How can I automate it so that we don't need more bodies all the time? What can make us more effective and efficient in our job and operations? I mean, as a leader, I like self-checked myself during that kind of growth, and multiple times was making sure that I was providing for my team, being there to be a listening ear to whatever they were feeling, because, there was uncertainty a lot of times. And then other ways, just making sure that I found myself, and I will say I made a key mistake, which was at times I was literally not eating, sleeping, or drinking. I was just so focused on growth and so focused on, my own personal development at that time, that I think a fear of failure. If I'm honest with you, it's fear of failure. Failure for me personally, failure of the team, failure for the company, and failure for my family, because I just was I was all in. And so It definitely was a time where I needed my husband had that conversation with me, and he was like, listen, we need you as the wife, we need you as the mom, we need you as the daughter, like you need to come back, and there's balance here. So that was something I was never very good at growing up, balance. And so I needed that kind of channel check. And I'm not afraid to share that that was a mistake I made because I got so obsessed with it. So I need to take that little step back there, keep that balance, and be okay that things didn't get done at the end of the day that were on the to-do list, and move them to the next day.
I'm so grateful, Katie, that you're sharing that, because I know that so many of us are going through that. I'm struggling with that at the moment myself. And when I hear you like listening from the side, it's just so obvious that that's the wrong way. When you're afraid of failing, and that's why you are like ignoring the basics of your physical health, right? It just sounds like, duh, obviously it doesn't work. But I'm going through that myself. I'm fairly okay with the physical health, but my mental health has been like pushed to the end of the list, and the list is endless, right? So that is really something that I need to actively bring to the top of the list every single day, and it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort. So obvious as it sounds from the side, I want you genius leaders to really pay attention to that. Where in this conversation can you recognize yourself right now? And challenge yourself to look for the ways out of that. Just as Katie said, she had those conversations with her husband. And it's beautiful when your husband is really open to have the conversation with you and say, hey, we need you. We're losing you. We want you. We love you. And we want you here, right? So think about that. Who can be that honest person that you can have this conversation with? Because not always we are capable of pulling ourselves out of those things ourselves, right? And even if we understand it, even if our brain is really like, okay, this is wrong, I know that I shouldn't be doing this way, but it's so hard to get out of that when you're in the moment. So it's so important to have the support system, both at work and in private life, all the time, and lean onto that. Because as leaders, we grow. Just as you, Katie, said, you were growing a lot, right, in that period of the growth of the company. And the growth comes with growth pains.
It does. Yeah.
So we really need to lean onto people who can help us when it is painful, and support us so that we actually get through that process. Katie, I want to roll back to two things. First one, you said about being the present for your people, right? That you were really trying to make sure that you're always there, you're a listening ear to them because things are going wrong, right? I know a lot of people who are stuck in this culture of meetings, for example. They're just running from one thing to another and so on, and their calendar is just filled with that. And they're like, I want to be a more present leader for my people, but I have no clue how to get there. Were you ever there, or did you have by default the culture that never got you to that challenge? And what would you suggest to people?
Yeah, so I can't say I ever got there, but I will say the reason I never got there is because I'm such a believer in developing my people. And in order to develop them, I have to have some trust, right? So when I onboard people onto the team, I'd have conversations about what I envisioned their career path. And I would sit there at offer letter time and say, today, knowing what I know, what do I envision this role to look like? And of course, it had moments where it needed to pivot or change due to circumstances and or necessarily wasn't exactly the right fit. And so I'm a big believer of right person, right seat, which is in the book Traction, and you'll hear a lot about that. But it's really important that I took a look at setting a career path and then trying to continue to ensure that I reminded them of the career path I saw for them, and then holding myself accountable to how do I develop them to get there. And a lot of that comes from being able to let go a little bit. I have, I daily touch points with my team to make sure. Even today, I oversee. I'm the chief operating officer for two companies. I'm the CEO of my own company, and I have teams built on all three of these platforms. But I'm doing touch points with them. I check in, see how things are going. We do have calls weekly on the calendar where they get one-on-one time. But I still just say, hey, how's your day going? And I make sure I let them know how much I appreciate them, I believe of them, and that they're followers. And I believe in the five levels of leadership, and being able to have people be your followers without them having to be. You start as a leader, and I can't remember the podcast I had that on, but you start as a leader where people have to follow you because they report to you, right? But I've now built this, I'm at this level of leadership where I've got this network of people that stay connected because they want to stay connected, not because they have to stay connected. And I've truly still been able to be a sounding board for them and to help, create a career path, create opportunities, connect them to opportunities. And so that's what I think, again, is what it's about being a true leader, keeping those relationships, but then don't be the micromanager. My team does make mistakes daily. They make mistakes, and I'm okay with it, because every time we do, we sit down, we talk about what went wrong. And those mistakes are my mistakes. If it happened, I tell them, like, you can't get in trouble for making a mistake. You can only get in trouble if we don't ever talk about the mistake, right? So I wanted to be a culture where they come to me, they talk about what went wrong, we learn together, we talk about ways to prevent it in the future. And I say to them that they'll always be my accountability, it'll always be my mistake.
This is a sign of great leadership to me. And if I summarize that answer, Katie, as you said, you yourself never get there with just being like in the spinning the wheels with meetings and so on. And I think the core here is really about the trust and letting people do their job. And that is a recurrent topic here. A lot of leaders who have been on my show are talking about that. Let your people play. Let them be in their zone of genius. Don't micromanage. So I would say that this culture of constant meetings often comes from lack of trust. And
I agree.
maybe a dozen of reasons for that. When the company grows too quickly, when there are some acquisitions where the cultures don't really work together and they collide. So you need to get some more control for a period, but then it just gets a habit and you continue with the control even when you don't need it.
Right.
But start exercising that as a leader. Start exercising that. Okay, which of these meetings can I take away by giving more trust to my people that they will solve it and they will come to me if they need my advice or they need to discuss the failure and find the learning in that. And do it one meeting at a time or one employee at a time. You don't have to redo everything from scratch today.
Don't overcorrect. Don't start doing that today. Yeah. No, one person at a time, one project at a time. Don't take on more than you can handle.
For sure. But that can start creating shifts for you, and you can get the energy and the valuable time that we all as leaders want more of to really lead your people the way you want to. So Katie, what else has happened in that growth period, both on your personal level as a leader and also on the team?
Yeah, so I added to my family during those times. I definitely went through some impostor syndrome a little bit, just because I was not very confident at times whether I really deserved the seat at the table or why I had the seat at the table. I questioned those things. But I really, I did a lot of just self-development. I listened to podcasts. I make sure that I stay connected on LinkedIn and building my network, having conversation. From a growth standpoint, I would definitely say building your network is just so, so important. You never know what conversations can lead you to what opportunities. And that's something I don't think enough people today, sure, people post on it, but are you having 5 or 6 conversations a week that you're just learning from, that you're not selling? Because it's you can't always be in sale mode. In fact, I'm often not in sale mode. I'm just in learning to understand how people do things, why they do it that way. And then from a leadership standpoint, I do the same thing. I look to learn from my team. I look to hire people that I'm going to learn from myself. And I tell them that I want you to take my job one day. I'm not fearful of you taking my job. I want you to take my job, because all boats rise. And if I continue to develop you and you develop underneath you, then we can get to a point where we have 3 companies that all run independently, and, I'm a part of them, but I'm not the only thing that makes them run, right? So it's so important to be able to continue building that leadership and that culture where they believe in themselves, they know you believe in them, and they know they're appreciated. Reward and recognition are very, very important. And I make sure that at as often as I can, I honor those two things.
I'm having goosebumps when you said about the boats, right, and the rising. And that's the thing, like when you are showing that you don't have fear of people stepping on your toes by the growth,
None.
that's just such a beautiful relationship to have as a leader. It is.
Makes the job very fun.
That's for sure as well. So would you like to give us an example or two maybe of the challenges you had and you overcome, or the learnings that you've got from the growth pains that you've been having in the company throughout those years? And then we could go over to the full advantage and what you do nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, one of the biggest things when we were in growth mode, it was like, I think you touched on it earlier, like the bringing of the cultures together. So we had built such a culture from our sales perspective where our leaders trusted in our back office. They trusted in our credit department. They trusted in our collections department. When somebody said, we need to bring this on with an on file or, a security deposit, prepayment, like, we didn't have all of these relationships that were running back up to the CEO and saying, "Oh, they're not letting me do my job." We just didn't have that. And I believe, again, it starts at the top. We had a CEO and leaders on the team that were very supportive and knew, hey, we have goals, we have growth goals, and if we want to achieve those and we want to achieve them fast, we need to have this area locked up. It's so important. If we just bring on any business and we had no credit policies, we had no collections policies, then we were going to have that high attrition and we're going to be running on a hamster wheel. We're not going to get that compound effect that I talk about often. And so we really got the sales organization in when we were in that 200 million and under, we got the sales organization to buy in on that. We got our CEO to be huge champion and supporter of that. And then when we went into like this, what I call hyper growth mode, it was so important. And I was on the road a ton, getting in and doing round tables with our sales departments, because as we were adding more of those leaders to the company and adding more sales representatives to the company, I wanted to get in front of them. I wanted to have these one-on-one conversations, not one-on-one, but in a round table opportunity. Let them trust me, let them buy in on me, and let them know that if my team's coming to them and saying this, this is why. It's because they want to see them continue to scale and grow. And if we put our time and money into accounts that aren't going to be with us in the future, 6 weeks, 6 months from now, we're not going to get that hyper super growth that we're looking for. We're going to get that hamster wheel. So when I got in front of them and I was able to sit and have those conversations, and I think in 1 year, it was literally like 40 conversations I did in a 6-month period of time, whether it be, by phone or in person. When I was able to have those conversations, I could see, like, it was weird. I always describe it as a surreal moment for me. I could see light bulbs going off above their heads. Like, they were bought in, show me the way. And so I would say, if you really want to see that hyper growth, make sure that you're looking at how are you onboarding customers? Do you have a credit policy? Because you want that revenue that's going to compound and be with you. And so, making sure that we had those conversations. And I think if we didn't, have those conversations, I don't know that we would have had the growth, because when you merge those two cultures together and those two different trains of thought, I think you can lose something if you didn't bring in how you wanted it to operate. If you had this group operating this way and this group operating this way, I just don't think you would have gotten the hyper growth. I can't say I know that because we didn't run into it. We got in front of it. So, that's my best recommendation.
I really love what you talk about now, Katie, because I've seen it quite a lot, especially in the big organizations. This us and them culture within.
Yep.
Especially between engineering and business, or sales operations and or product development and aftermarket, and so on and so forth. So what you're discussing right now, so many companies are going through. So I want to go a bit deeper here for a moment. What kind of conversations were those? How did you get the buy-in into those round tables? What kind of questions did you ask? What kind of why did you give to them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, one of the biggest things was the first thing I said when I sat at the table was, listen, I think your job is one of the hardest jobs in the organization. Sales is one of the hardest jobs in the organization. And I didn't say that in a fake manner. I said that in a truly, like, I get it that, knocking on doors, quote unquote, picking up the phone and having cold calling and just getting that rejection has got to be hard. And so when you get somebody that says yes, naturally your body and your mind want to go, let's just do business with them. But I talked about why it's so important to make sure they were spending their time and money. And when I say money, meaning their time, their energy on the right account, on the business that's going to be there, that was the right business for us as an organization to bring on. And working with that team on the back end is how you were going to know whose door you wanted to knock on, whose phone you wanted to pick up and call. Because if you were just going all business is good business, we weren't going to see that hyper growth that we were looking for. So when we got a little bit picky and choosy about who we were bringing on, and we started with how do we look for the right leads in the beginning? How do we make sure our salespeople are doing this? I looked at them and said, I want to see you on a golf course on Wednesdays. I want to see you have three-day weekends more often than not. But I can't get you there if you don't trust me. So it was a trust conversation, and I think looking into my eyes and seeing my passion and purpose and knowing that I truly did believe in them. I still believe in them today. I still have these conversations with these people that aren't a part of my organization today, that they know that I care and that I wanted to see that growth for them. And so many of them have now gone on to be CEOs of their own companies because, they were able to get that growth and get that success.
It's so important that you said that you started with acknowledgement, right? You see your people, you know their struggles, because I could imagine that a lot of us and them kind of cultures start from there. Like they don't get us, they'll never get us, and they don't have the interest in doing that. And you coming with this perspective, like, hey guys, I see you. It's important what you do, and I know that it's hard. Just that opens up the hearts and the minds of people. And then with that, those open heart and mind, you can together come to the solutions that everyone has to buy in. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. Once I had that open heart, open mind, I then walked them through the story. And the story was, we wanted to be able to do larger investments from contest perspectives, from trip perspectives, from different things, but we needed to have the financing. We needed the funds to do that. And those funds came from us being able not only to sell the customer, but to be able to collect those funds on the back end, because it was a chicken before the egg conversation, right? Yes, sales are super important, but our sales, if we don't bring the cash through on the back end, they're equally important. They're equally, you need both in order to be successful. And so I was there and saying to them that we've got long-term plans for this organization, and we want you to be a part of it. And if we can do this together as a team, then we can mutually reach our goals. Well, I can reach my goals in my credit and collections departments. They can reach their goals from a sales perspective. And when we had that synergy, that's when the magic truly happened. That hyper growth was really something that just truly remarkable to watch. And a lot of it came with working together, and then me being able to replicate my relationships and what I was doing, not only with my team, but my team replicating it with other teams. So it didn't have to be me there. I was able to teach what I was doing to others, and that's where the real compound effect occurred. But I would say the true testament to that was that the CEO, the CFO, when we were in the 200 million in size, believed in that message. So there was not this, oh, let me go run up to the top, and then the CEO comes down and says, no, we're not going to do it that way. It was, you know what, there's a reason why that person's in that position, and I'm going to back them. And so, yeah, we mutually understood each other. We mutually worked together, and we achieved both of our goals. And that was the goal.
Yeah, just as I said, that's the magic, right? That happens. And I believe that we can actually get to the world where that is not magic anymore. Like, oh my God, that happened, but it's more normal. And that's why we work with the things we do, right? Both you and me in our own worlds. So thanks a lot for sharing that journey. And I think our listeners and viewers have gotten a lot of nuggets to work with there and to take with them. And now I want to transition to this journey of yours as an entrepreneur. What motivated you? Like, you've been successful in that corporate job, and you still like have your toes in there, right? But why why going and trying to work with smaller businesses, but more of them?
So I had this aha moment when I was, doing that road show that I was just kind of describing to you, going in and talking to them. And the moment was that if our organization needed this kind of conversation, how many other organizations need it? And I did get the opportunity to work with, a Fortune 50 company in 2019. And so that really kind of sealed for me that more companies need this conversation and this help than I even realized. And so through Full Advantage, we connect people, process, and profit. That's kind of our slogan. And then I come in from a consultative approach and look at, okay, do you need my team to come in and just help reorg, restructure, new process, new procedures, scale and grow from there? Or, the other avenue we have is just we handle it all together. And so we can handle billing, payment processing, credit collections. We have a team of people that handle all of those things. It's continuing to grow. And so depending on the leader and what they were looking to accomplish, we can help either come in and work with the existing team, help coach, help train, lead, provide all of those things, or we can just be that, outsourced solution that looks and feels like your team. We're calling as that company. We're represented as that company, but we in fact are a separate organization. And so it's that plug and play opportunity that a lot of companies don't necessarily feel like they have today. So and I had that aha moment when I was on that road show that, man, if I can be this impactful to one organization, what could I do to many? And so that kind of started the wheels spinning that down the road in a future life, this is what I wanted to do. And I certainly am still in corporate America, and enjoy my role as it stands on both of those companies, and truly seeing the growth already in those companies. But I also like to be able to have these conversations and just continuing to see where this leads.
Did you directly have the idea of having both ways of working with you, so plug and play, but also the coaching or consulting? Or did you start with one and then you saw, okay, there is a need for the other one as well and we can offer it? What's the journey there?
No, I definitely had both all the time. I really very heavy on the consulting side from 2019 into 2020. And, one of the things that I just had said to myself, okay, I think now is the time to start implementing the we can just do it for you. It's certainly a lot more work. People want to, keep the existing infrastructure, keep the people. The consulting option is definitely the one to go with. But for some companies, especially I work with a number of private equity firms who have separate portcos, they bring us in to say, hey, we've got this cleanup. Let's bring you in. Let's have you clean it up. And then either you handle it ongoing or, it's handled differently, going forward. So it's kind of got both of those things. And really that's what it's all about, right? You either want to keep it in-house, keep control of it, have your people be, leveled up, or the other side of it is, hey, listen, I've tried it this way. I really believed in the people I've got, but it just didn't work out. You guys slowly need to take this over, and we'll let you handle it.
What's next for you? What do you see for the Full Advantage LLC, the growth of it? Where do you want to get with it?
I don't have that roadmap. I can tell you that I am just flying by the seat of my pants, embracing every day. My core focus is on growing the two companies that I'm the chief operating officer for, helping them to scale and grow. And so I really try to limit, how much I take on. So I've had to turn away opportunities and connect other people to those opportunities. I've certainly got quite a network of people that I work with and refer business to. But I've really, I would love to wake up 2 or 3 years from now to, multi-million-dollar, 3 multi-million-dollar companies, and leadership and growth and development in all of them, and be more of the outside looking in. That would kind of be the goal, I say 3 to 5 years from now. Then I'll write my book. I want to write a book. That's on my list of things.
Okay. Have you started already?
I have not.
Do you have an idea what it would be about?
Leadership. I think leadership, the struggles, the story, I've got quite a personal and professional story, and I've learned that as I start to tell it. I mean, I spoke, and in the evenings I speak in different women's groups in different organizations, and I get to share that story. I kind of help them to, grass isn't always greener for those that are like on the fence starting to look. I'm like, listen, grass isn't always greener. Have the conversations, learn to put your feet in somewhere. And if you job hop, that's how you're going to be viewed. And I talk about what I look for at resumes and stuff like that. But I thoroughly enjoy those evening conversations and doing more of that. And haven't put any time into writing the book yet, but it's on the list of things to do in the future.
It's good that you're sharing here, Katie, because maybe someone who is listening have for example, the women's group in their in their organization that they would like you to talk to, or maybe they could they really love your story and you and your experience and would love to help you with the book getting out. So just heads up there, out there, genius leaders.
I think that's a great point. And it's so funny. I say women's group because I have spoken a few, but I've definitely spoken in just mentorship and leadership groups, because I think that's a huge thing. And I know I didn't talk too much about that, but I did form that mentor-mentee program. I shouldn't say I formed it, but I helped implement it and continued to do that today, where I just want to continue to bring in new people and to have, that partner for them that they can have as a sounding board, not necessarily in their department or not doing the same role as them, but help them to get in, incubated into the organization. And so it's definitely, doesn't have to be a women's group only. I've definitely spoken at other events that were not just women, but I enjoy both of them. And so if you don't have any kind of mentorship, leadership program, I definitely think that's another nugget to implement, because it starts to, again, foster that culture and that growth. And one of the things I will say that I've never, knock on wood, in my many years, I have not had an attrition problem from a personnel standpoint. I have people that call me regularly that want to come work for me, that worked for me previously. And I'm a big believer in, you create a culture that people want to be around, or, you're a leader that people want to be around, they'll follow you to the end of the earth. And so I don't worry about people, that do get better opportunities. If an employee gets offered a better opportunity for them, I bless and release. I let them know that it's been great working with them. I hope this new opportunity is successful. Anything I can do to help them. There's no bitter, and I haven't gone up against this, but when I have, the few times that it's popped up, I wish them the best, because true leaders want to see their employees and their followers, like I say, go, further. And so I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, for sure. Mentorship is always a two-sided or two-way street, right?
Yes.
I've been on the mentor side for the youth and within my organization, so I've seen it, how much I've learned as well, how much it opens up new perspectives for you, because usually you mentor someone who is quite different from you, right? In a way, but usually it's some person who is younger, less experienced, but it doesn't mean that they don't have anything to offer you. They offer you a completely new picture or view to the world. And if you're open to that and perceptive to that, you just learn and you develop and you evolve as a leader and as a human being. So that's just the kind of relationship I promote very strongly as well, that we all should be mentoring in our lives, because that's the beauty of the passing the knowledge further and also getting more knowledge. And just as you said about compound effects of it, that's how we can get it.
Absolutely.
Katie, you mentioned a bit of the imposter syndrome in the hypergrowth phase of your career in the corporate world, when you were not sure that you deserve the seat at that table, that you deserve the positions that you were given and the trust that you were given. How have you been working with that? And also, has it anyhow changed since you started your own business?
Yeah. There's days that it still pops up, and I question, holy crap, what am I doing? I'm taking on too much, those kind of things. So I do have to channel check, and I find myself just trusting in my gut and knowing that sometimes that, certain projects, certain opportunities just aren't the right time, right fit. And so I'm not afraid to say, hey, I might not be the right opportunity after a conversation. Let me point you in the right direction. But I certainly, yes, I don't think anybody who ever came in contact with me during those times would tell you that because I've always had this very confident personality. But yeah, deep down inside, there were definitely times that I was questioning everything. And I just kind of had to keep trusting and knowing. And again, I'll go back to my spouse who is my biggest cheerleader, believes in me more than I believe in myself on any given day. And just the reassurance that I was getting constantly from there was so helpful in my personal and professional growth.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot, and I'm usually saying that I see that we get some highs here. Hi from Sunil from Dubai, and Natalie. I know she's tuning in from the UK, so we're quite international here with our audience. Hello. So yeah, I shared a couple of times in the interviews that I learned the unconditional love from my husband. He taught me by his example of unconditional love in me how that can be, and whenever I would get those kind of comments from him like "I love you" on a bad day or my bad day, and I would say why, I like there's no reason to love me, and he would just stare at me like because I love you. And I really thought about it. I want to have that within myself, that I can say that to myself unconditionally every single day. And just leaning onto him in that process of learning that was such huge help to me. I would sometimes have it that I would get that bad day, and I would already be in the stage of like knowing that okay, bad day doesn't mean bad life, and bad action of mine doesn't mean I'm a bad person. But I would still like start doubting myself. I would just come to him and say I need a cuddle, and then say, tell me 5 things that are good about me. And I would just listen, and I would try to remember them. So leaning onto people around us who have more confidence in us, who see something that we sometimes forget because of that imposter syndrome, this is super important. And it's not the weakness of you, it's not you stepping back somehow in your progress, it's you getting help on your growth journey. Just as we discussed before, you need that, right? You need to lean onto someone all the time because we are growing, and not always we're stable enough in that new size of ours. So it's thanks so much, Katie, for sharing that you have your spouse who have been by your side in those tough moments, and also how you are training yourself and nurturing that trust, right? That okay, it is tough, but maybe that's just not the right moment, not the right thing to do at the moment, but it all will come together. So it's also this kind of trust in the process, in a way.
Absolutely. Trust in the process. I couldn't have ended on a better note.
So talking about the end, I usually ask 3 questions, Katie, in the end. And one of them is, what would be your 3 pieces of advice? And that could be a summary of what we have discussed, but it could be something completely different as well.
Yeah. So my 3 pieces of advice are trust in the process, 100%. 2, build a network and have conversations. Try to have 5 new conversations every single week, no matter what, because you never know where those conversations could lead, whether it be, opportunity from a sales perspective, or even be opportunity from, adding to your own culture, and connecting with somebody. And then I would say number 3 is it all starts at the top. It starts with the top. You have to start with the end in mind. And if you can get yourself to create the right culture and create the right opportunity, it is just pretty magical what can happen from there. So remember that if there's something in a culture that you don't like, it starts with you. And if you let it continue, then you're tolerating that and you're letting it affect your culture. If it's something you don't want to have in your culture, then you, as the leader, have to make the organization understand that is not the kind of culture you want, and you want to make sure those people are either removed or, have a conversation and say, listen, I want to have you here long term. I want to see your future, but I need you to change these areas.
That's beautiful, Katie. Just a side note to that old question, like I know that we also have listeners and viewers who are somewhere in the middle of the organization. What would you suggest to them if they don't see themselves as the top, right? And they are not the one and only who creates the culture. What would you say to them in this context?
Yeah, first thing I would say is to reach out to their superiors, reach out to the executive leadership team, and say, what are you looking for in future leadership? What are ways for me to get an opportunity to have a seat at the table? Not, oftentimes I think this mistake is made as it's heard like a promotion. It doesn't need to be a promotion. I'm a big believer that you do the job before you even have the title. First of all, pay and promotion and title come with after doing the job. And anybody who's ever reported to me will attest to. I'm a big believer in that. And two, I think that if you're having these conversations, it helps them to know you're open-minded. You are, company. You're thinking company first, and you want to know what can you do, what can you help with to help the company succeed, and what are they looking for in the future in their own leaders. And then again, networking. I can't say that enough. Look for that mentorship. Build a group that you can feed off of, that you can bounce ideas off of, that you can refer business to, so that you can continue to grow yourself. Those are very, very important things.
Love that. And the first point that you said, reach out and ask, that is quite often people don't even think about it, don't get the idea of that, right? So it's so good that you pointed out that, of course, you can be scared of that, and you think, oh, what's the scariest thing that can happen? And the scariest thing is scary to you. But at the same time, think about it. You are showing your ambition and that your commitment to the company. And if the company doesn't appreciate it, maybe that's time to step aside and not waste your life and your ambition with that company if you're not aligned that way. So
right.
Take it. And there is no worst case scenario here, really, if you step up and talk. Thanks for sharing that, Katie. So what would be one piece of advice on the practical level, some action step that our listeners and viewers can take today after listening to us?
Definitely put themselves out there on social media more, whether it be their Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. I would say going and putting something out there that's really personal. That really is what resonates with people, helps them to see, like-minded individuals. I think I look for like-minded individuals a lot in my network. And then continuing to read and have conversations and continuing to listen to podcasts, think differently, be open to thinking differently, be open to doing things differently than the way you do them today. And don't be afraid to take leaps. Don't be afraid to do things different than what you do today. Yes, comfort is such an easy thing to do. It's easy to do the same thing every single day and you will get the same results. But if you want different results, you have to be willing to take, chances and take leaps at doing things differently than the way you do them today. Personally and professionally.
For sure. That's great. Katie, if people would like to know more about you and what you do and maybe want to collaborate with you and hire some people from your team from Full Advantage, how can they find you, learn more?
Yeah. So we are on LinkedIn, Full Advantage LLC. We also, can connect with me personally on LinkedIn. Facebook page, it's also out there. And I think, you'll get all the handles out there for anybody who's looking for them. But Katie Keich on LinkedIn, Full Advantage LLC on Facebook and Instagram.
Perfect. So we'll put all those in the show notes when the podcast goes live. And I would just like to thank you so much for being so open and for sharing your experiences. I think there were a lot of very valuable golden nuggets here in how to build a team, how to really bring people together. That's what leadership is about, right? Really creating this magical synergy among the people whom we have and whom we're blessed to work with. And you just dropped so many wisdom pieces there, the nuggets that help us think in the right way to really seek out that synergy and to nurture it. So thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
It was my pleasure as well. And to all the genius leaders tuning in, thanks so much for doing just that and spending some time with us. And let us know what you learned today. What action are you taking? And what you would like to learn more about. Maybe dig deeper into some of the topics we covered with Katie, or something else that sparked in you while listening to us and you would like to kind of shift the conversation a bit, I'm always happy to get your input and take it into account. So have a beautiful continuation of the week, everyone.